Hi everybody, in this video we are going to continue with the first chapter named as the living world. So in this chapter we discussed in the previous videos about the general characteristics of the living organisms, and the first characteristic that we studied is the growth, and the second characteristic that we studied is reproduction. Okay, second characteristic that we studied about the living organisms is reproduction. And the third characteristic which we studied is about the metabolism. Okay, the metabolism. And of course here only we also studied about the cellular organization. Okay, cellular organization. Okay, cellular organization we studied. Okay, cellular organization. And the third one, the fifth one which we studied is about the consciousness. Okay, consciousness. So here when we discussed about all these characteristics of the living organisms, okay, we identified and understood what are the well-defining characteristics of the living organisms. When we studied about the growth, we said it is not a well-defining characteristic. When we discussed about the reproduction, it is not a well-defining characteristic of the living organisms. But when we discussed about metabolism and cellular organization and consciousness, we concluded that these are the well-defining characteristics. Okay, these are the well-defining characteristics of the living organisms, we said. Now let us understand much more in detail about at the levels of organization. So we know, and you studied that, okay, the living organisms, as we already studied in the previous videos, that cells are made up of what? Chemicals, atoms, molecules and macromolecules. But here I am showing you from the cell. So a cell, a group of cells, they join together to form as what? A tissue, we say. Okay, a tissue, which means the tissue is made up of what? The cells, the more cells. Okay, they join together performing only one function. And a group of tissues join together to form as what? Now an organ. Okay, an organ will be formed. So when there are many organs in the body, okay, we call them as what? The organ system we are calling it as. Okay, organ system. Okay, organ system we are calling it as. And when there are all the required organs in the body, then we call it as what? The organism. Okay, we are calling this as organism. So till here, okay, I'll just hold. Now if you keeping this flow chart, okay, this diagrammatic representation. Now if you are looking at these sentences which I am using, okay, you should be very careful in understanding this. Properties of tissues, okay, properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells. Okay, properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells, but arise as a result of interactions. Okay, as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. What do you mean by this first sentence that we used? Okay, what do you mean by this? We are saying that if there are, now here if you see the cell, okay, a group of cells join together to form as what? A tissue, we are saying. Now let us take a tissue. Now we should remember that when we are saying a tissue, the tissue is made up of what? Many cells. Okay, a group of cells we are saying. So let us say that this is a tissue. Now when you are looking at the properties of a tissue, now let me say that this is what? A tissue. But a tissue is made up of what? We are saying that it is made up of cells. Now properties of a tissue are not present in a constituent cell, means the properties or the characteristics of this tissue will not be present in the individual cell. It is not about individual cell. It is about what? But arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells, we are saying. Which means that the interactions that are taking place between all these cells togetherly, okay, that interactions that take place are the properties of that particular tissue. So we have to remember that properties of a tissue are not, okay, properties of a tissue are not depending upon one single cell present in the tissue. Properties of a tissue will not depend upon one single cell present in a tissue, but it depends upon what? The interactions that are taking place between all these cells. The interactions, okay, how they are interacting with the other cells, how they are exchanging their, okay, substances and all. Based upon all that, then based on that we are concluding that they are as the properties of a tissue. So here simple way to understand is that properties of a tissue will not depend upon one single cell of that tissue, but depends upon the interactions between all the tissue cells that are present in a tissue. Depending upon all the interactions that are taking place between the cells of a tissue. That's a clear-cut point, and we have to keep this in mind. In the same way, similarly, if you are looking at the properties of a cellular organelles, okay, as we know that there are many organelles present in a cell, okay, there are many organelles present in a cell. Those properties of cellular organelles are not present in the molecular constituents. Remember this, okay? They are not present in what? Molecular constituents. So here, let us remember what we mean by the molecular constituents. Means what? Now, look at here. If I am taking one cell, okay? If I am taking one cell. Now, there are different organelles we say, okay? Maybe mitochondria, maybe lysosome, maybe endoplasmic reticulum, okay? Maybe endoplasmic reticulum will be there, or maybe the endoplasmic reticulum will be there, maybe the Golgi complex will be there, okay? There are different cell organelles that will be there, but all these cell organelles that are there are interacting with each other, okay? Just mitochondria cannot make it life to sustain in that cell, okay? All the functions of the cell will not depend upon one cell organelle. They have to interact with other cell organelles. So I said that there are different cell organelles: mitochondria, lysosomes, okay, endoplasmic reticulum, okay, Golgi complex. These are all interacting with each other. They are having communication with each other. Only with the interaction with each other can bring up as the whole properties of that particular cell organelle, okay, as the whole properties of the cell organelle. Now see here, properties of cellular organelles are not present in the molecular constituents. Here, now the main thing that we have to understand here is, what do you mean by the molecular constituents? Means, what are those chemical substances? Molecular constituent means, what are those molecules or chemicals that are getting exchanged between the all the cell organelles, okay? So, it is not depending upon one chemical, one molecular constituent. It is what? It arises as a result of what? Interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelle. Means what? Within one cell organelle, there will be many chemicals which are involved in various metabolic reactions. So, when all these are involved and interacting, okay, within one cell organelle. So let us take, say suppose you are taking one particular cell organelle, okay. Say suppose I am taking now here one cell organelle, okay. If I am taking one particular cell organelle, okay, one particular cell organelle. If you are taking, say for example, we are taking a mitochondria. So in mitochondria, there will be various chemical substances that will be there. Okay, there are various chemical substances. So what we have to understand here, the properties of one cell organelle do not depend upon one molecule, but it depends upon what? Various molecules that are interacting with each other within that cell organelle, So let us make it very simple to understand now the second point. Properties of cell organelles. Okay, now we have to understand the properties of what? The cell organelle. But the properties of cell organelle will not depend upon what? One chemical that is there present in that particular cell organelle. But what? It will be depending upon what? Many molecules that are interacting between them within that cell organelle. So these two sentences or these two, okay, points are very important to keep in mind. So let us keep in mind that in a tissue, properties of a tissue will not depend upon one single cell present in the tissue, but the properties are understood very clearly about the tissues based upon what? The interactions that are taking place between the cells. Based upon the interactions that are taking place between the cells, we can determine the properties of a tissue. In the same way, properties of the cell organelles, okay, properties of the cell organelles present, okay, are not present in the molecular constituents. It is not, you cannot tell the properties looking at one cell organelle, these are the chemicals, so these are the properties. No. How do you determine the properties of one particular cell organelle? Based upon the chemicals or the molecules that are interacting with each other. It is not single molecule. You will be talking about the properties about when they are interacting with each other. So these are the points that we have to keep in mind. Okay, we keep in mind. So let us remember that at the higher levels of organization, means when you are talking about the organ systems or the organism, okay, we should remember that the interactions that are taking place are very, very important. It is these interactions which help in what? Self-replicating of an organism. Okay, it is these interactions which help an organism to self-replicating. Okay, self-replication. Okay, helps in self-replication for its evolving. Okay, for its evolving. Okay, for its evolving. Okay, for its evolving, self-replication is very important, we say. So let us remember that for any organism, interactions are very important, and these interactions at higher level of organization helps an organism for its self-replication, evolving, and also for self-regulating. Okay, also for self-regulating. Okay, for self-regulating or regulation, self-regulation. All these are very important. Okay, all these three are very important for an organism to respond to the stimuli. Okay, to respond. Okay, to respond to the stimuli. Okay, to respond. Okay, to the stimuli. These are very, very important. Okay, to respond to the stimuli. These are very important. How these are possible means it is possible because the cells in a tissue are interacting with each other, and the molecules present in one cell organelle are interacting each other, which are related to their properties, helping them to self-replicate, evolve, and self-regulation. And these are all helping for an organism to respond to the stimuli. Okay, to respond to the stimuli. These are the points that we have to keep in mind. So let us remember, now keeping all these points in mind, we can come to a conclusion that biology, okay, biology is nothing but a story on the earth. It is a story of life. Okay, story of life. Okay, biology is nothing but story of life on earth. Okay, it is the story of life on earth. Okay, this is what we have to remember. And at the same time, biology is the evolution. Okay, is the evolution of living organisms. It is the story of evolution of living organisms. Okay, living organisms. This is what we have to remember in simple when we understood the properties of the living organisms. So let us remember that biology is nothing but what? Story of life on earth, and it is the story of evolution. Okay, story of evolution of living organisms. Okay, evolution of living organisms. So how do we understand this? It is based upon the levels of the arrangement or the levels of the organization. Organization is possible only when there is an interactions or properties that are very clearly understood about the taking place between the cells in a tissue and the molecules which are there present in one cell organelle. So here simple point that we have to keep in mind. And there is life. Okay, now we are seeing, okay, there are different types of organisms. Okay, the organisms are there now. Okay, in the past there are many organisms present. Okay, present also now we are seeing many organisms which are present, and even in the future also we will be seeing many organisms. Okay, we will be seeing many organisms. Okay, we will be seeing many organisms. But we have to remember, even though we came across or we studied about many living organisms in the past, now we are seeing many living organisms at present, and we are going to see many living organisms in the future. Whatever it is, okay, all the living organisms are sharing the common, okay, genetic material. Okay, please remember this. Please remember this, that whether the organisms that are there in the past, present, and future, they are sharing almost what? The common genetic material. Okay, common genetic material. Now, as soon as I use this word, common genetic material, okay, common genetic material, you may get a doubt, thinking that why not then all are the same when the genetic material is the same, present in all the organisms in the past, present, and future. But it is not so. That why? Because now I am using another word, but varying degrees, means it is of different degrees, means expression of that genetic material is of at different degrees. So you have to remember, all the living organisms are commonly having what? The genetic material, but in varying degrees, because they means the genetic material is same, but it is different, okay, expressed in different ways in different organisms. So because of that, they will be entirely looking different. But otherwise, we should remember all the living organisms are coming from one single organisms that we are going to study in the other part of the chapter. So here in this video, let us keep in mind the last sentence as that all the living organisms which are present in the past, present and future are sharing the common genetic material, but at varying degrees, okay, but varying in degrees, okay, please remember that. So these are all the points that we have to keep in mind, okay. So let us keep these points in our mind, then we will be talking about very important topic in the next video. Thank you so much.